Most people try to get smarter answers from LLMs by asking it smarter questions, but the best way to get smarter answers from your LLM is to help it think smarter. And for me, learning the difference now saves me thousands of dollars on any given day. And it used to be frustrating when I tested output in the real world and failed horribly because the answer would look so good in ChatGPT or Claude, but the stakes are even higher when you're using it to make business decisions that cost time and money to implement. So I'm going to show you 4 things I started using in my business that will change how accurate your AI outputs are before you ever test them. And I'll walk through all 4 using one real scenario start to finish. And by the way, if you're new here, I've done over $5 million as an entrepreneur across multiple businesses. Now I'm building something 10 times bigger, and this channel is me documenting what I learned along the way. So tune in to get the lesson without the tuition. Now, I'm going to use a fictional scenario here just because it'll be easier for everybody to have the same context to follow as I go through this. So here's the scenario that we're working with. Maya is a fitness coach. She works with women 35 to 50 years old who've tried everything, the diets, the gym memberships, the Monday restarts, and nothing sticks. She's written a meta ad, she's got a landing page, and she wants people to book a free strategy call. She provided this ad copy for her funnel, and then I have some ad copy. So first, let's submit the information. All right, Claude's got it. Let's look at this feedback that Claude decided to give me. The ad is doing the emotional heavy lifting, acknowledging the Monday restart cycle, naming the gap between knowing and doing, and positioning Maya as the person who helps without forcing a lifestyle overhaul. That sounds pretty positive. And what most people would do at this point, if they had any skepticism, would be asking, how can I improve on this ad specifically? But what I'm going to show you instead is how you can actually find better ad copy in this particular case by running a simulation, something almost no one does. But simulations are extremely powerful, not just for this scenario alone, and you'll see why. Now, before I show you this first prompt, I want to be clear that this first prompt is only the setup for the simulation. It's 2 prompts, 2 phases. So don't prejudge or assume what's happening based off of the first prompt. Just be sure you go through the full thing and it'll become clear how this made me almost an extra $100,000 the very first time I installed this process into a scaling campaign and how to copy it for whatever you're doing. So here's the prompt. Generate the 5 most likely people who see the cold meta ad in the wild. Please be aware that specifying if you are doing an ad scenario, whether it's cold or warm, is meaningful. Not ideal customers, but likely customers. Real scroll stopping, thumb pausing people. Name, the age, the job, the biggest fitness frustration, what stopped them from hiring a coach before. Also, give me the breakdown of each person in bullets and summaries for clarity purposes when looking through all of them to compare at a glance. The last part I added about bullets and summaries, you don't necessarily have to do, but I like to do that for quick reading purposes, but more importantly for this video to make it more legible. So check it out, but be clear this is not the simulation in and of itself. A lot of people stop here. They might ask for the opinions of these different people or what they would think. This is not what we're doing here. You have Jenna. She's a senior project manager at a regional health insurance company. Biggest frustration is she lost 22 pounds on macro tracking program 2 years ago. I mean, we're talking about details like at a glance, Reese is a premenopause curious mom, ready for answers, scared of the price tag, doesn't think she's the type of person who hires a coach. For Andrea, at a glance, she's a high earner with no time. She doesn't believe coaching can solve her calendar problem. And then we have Tasha, then we have Megan. And when it comes to not hiring a coach, we have any answer from, I feel like I should do this myself. I'm skeptical of the industry. I have a time issue. I have a pricing issue, and I have trauma from past programs. Now we're about to get into the sauce. Because once we get here, someone will say, help write me an ad to target each person. But let's run a real simulation on these people. And I'll show you what I mean by running a real simulation. Watch this. Here's the difference in answers. I'm going to show you something like what most people would say. Based on these responses, give me 5 ads that are more likely to get clicked than the original. Rank them from most likely to least likely to convert and tell me why you rank them that way. All right. That sounds like a pretty good ask, right? We already generated these different types of customers, and now we're asking for a singular ad that performs better. These ads are great, and I'm not going to go through every single one of them because I want you to compare it to when the simulation happens. Here's the next prompt. Now, let's try this instead. Based on the responses, Run a 100 lead test with those archetypes and give me 5 ads more likely to get clicked than the original. Rank them from most likely to least likely to convert, and tell me why you ranked them that way. And because we ran that other test just to see, so you can see if there anything changes, additionally, show me how the 5 alternate ads that you generated ranks among the now total 11 ads. I'm going to fast forward through this part, but I've been waiting for about 40 seconds now. Claude already answered that previous question within about 10 to 20 seconds. Remember when we talked about improving how Claude thinks? Claude is thinking a lot harder about this question now than what it did before. Okay, so I lost track of time. I'll put a note on the screen to let you know exactly how long Claude took to answer this, just for your own comparison purposes. But let's look at the answer. Setting up the tests first so the numbers make sense. The lead distribution across 100 people. Let's just understand what's happening here. In a normal case, Claude will just build out an ad that can best reach all of the people who are considered. But because we're now asking it to do a real world simulation, it's saying, okay, first I have to do the equation to determine how likely it is for each of these individual types of people to actually see the ad in the first place. Because it doesn't make sense to optimize an ad equally for somebody that you are unlikely to ever come across compared to somebody you're going to come across frequently. For example, here, it says high earners like Andrea are the rarest to come across because they're harder for Meta to identify behaviorally. So that has to be factored in accordingly. So look how it bucketed the leads. It said 25 in one bucket, 25 leads in another bucket, 20 leads, 15 leads, and 15 leads in the remaining buckets. Each archetype has a different click probability per ad based on whether the hook addresses her actual blocker. I modeled those probabilities, then totaled the clicks. It's telling you exactly what it's doing. And I'm going through this in detail just so you can understand the difference in a simulation. So now it generated these 5 new ads. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those new ads, just like I didn't spend time going through the copy for all of the old ads just yet. But look at how it's ranking every single one of these ads. From 1 to 5, you're seeing anything ranging from 15 to 12 clicks in the top 5 ads. But let's look at the full leaderboard so you can understand the level of detail that it will give you. The very first ad is one of those new ads generated specifically from the lead test. And it's telling you the archetype that's most likely to convert from that ad. 5 of the top 7 ads came from when I put the extra pressure for Claude to do a simulation and create ads in reference to the simulation that should perform better than the original. Now keep in mind, you don't have to ask it to generate new ads. You could have your own list of ads and just want it to measure and judge which ones are most likely to perform that way. But I know we tend to create more than one ad at once. And sometimes I'll create more than I'm going to test, and I want to prioritize all of the copy I have to decide which one I am going to put into Meta, put some money behind first, because I'm trying to get to the quickest win as fast as possible. And at this point, the original is ranking all the way down at number 10 out of 11. Imagine if I only asked Claude to help me tweak the original ad based on its simple opinion on if it thinks it's a good ad or not. And then I could go on and on showing you this breakdown. Click by archetypes, top 6 ads. The low commitment angle wins by being the only ad that performs at least decently across all 5 archetypes. Every other ad in the top 6 has at least one segment where it lands flat. That breadth matters in cold traffic where you can't pre-segment. So check this out. They're saying run these 3 ads, which will give you a broad reach play. The empathy play, the specificity play covered. They want all of these in your mix. I think we're clear at this point that there's a significant level of difference when it comes to the detail of running a simulation. But before we continue, I want to move into the second key when it comes to helping Claude think smarter, or whatever LLM you're using, and that's KPIs. So check this out. I'm going to add another prompt that clarifies to Claude what the most important KPI is, because without telling it your most important KPI, it's going to give you great answers. You saw the answers Claude gave me, but it's not necessarily going to be the best answer for your real world result that you're going for. And in Maya's case, she wants booked calls. Now, I didn't just give Claude that In isolation, I gave it context. Here's the prompt. Before we continue, I need to give you Maya's actual KPI. Her goal isn't to maximize clicks, it's to maximize booked calls. She's learned that people who click impulsively don't necessarily book, which never gives her a chance to make the sale in the first place. So the metric that actually matters to her business is how many people book a call. With that in mind, reevaluate the ads you just ranked. Does the ranking change? And what would you adjust in each ad or in the call to action specifically to attract fewer impulsive clicks and more bookings? So although that simulation was great, immediately you see Claude say, this changes things significantly. CTR optimization and booking optimization are almost opposite goals, and the ad with the lowest friction often produces the most ghost clicks. Here's how the model shifts when we measure booked calls instead of clicks. It'll explain that. It's not necessarily the point of this video, so I'll give you a place to pause on if you want to read it. But now let's look at the rankings. And Claude summarizes the biggest movers. The low commitment ad fell from number 1 to number 8 because including no commitment is exactly the language that produces the impulsive clicks that Maya is trying to avoid. The calendar problem ad went from number 9 to number 5. And hormone reality skipped all the way to number 1. And there were other ads that moved around as well. This is what it looks like when you get Claude to think more sharply. But let's move on to the third way to get Claude to think smarter instead of just answering smartly. Because the simulation and test showed you how people behave, and the KPI made sure that it had the right North Star. But this third tool helps you get an understanding of how people actually think. And LLMs handle how people behave and how they think completely differently. And we call this the board of directors trick that you can use in pretty much any scenario. So let's show this next example using Maya still. I'll go ahead and put the prompt on the screen. So basically the scenario is Maya is considering raising the prices on her 12-week one-on-one program from $2,400 to $3,500. And we don't want to just ask what Claude thinks. We want Claude to generate a board of directors of 3 types of people. In this particular case, we're going to do a direct response marketer who has sold high-ticket coaching offers and only cares about conversion rate. Also, we're going to do an existing client who paid $2,400 and is considering signing up again, and a competing coach who charges $3,200 for a similar program. This is an interesting mix of people, right? And then we're going to tell Claude to say, give me each of their assessments of whether this price increase makes sense, then synthesize the recommendations. The direct response marketer cautiously says, yes, you can raise your price to that, but with conditions, and then it's going to tell you what they want to know. They want to understand your current close rate. Are you getting any current disputes and why? If we go to your existing client, skeptical and a little hurt. I just paid $2,400 6 months ago and I got a great result. If you're now charging $3,500, either I got a deal then that's not available anymore or the program is meaningfully better. You have to really think about that expectation. Is it meaningfully better? And going through each of these scenarios, the important part about it is this allows you to cover all the bases when you're making a decision. Because yes, you might get the right answer, but even when you make the adjustment, if it's okay to up your price, you might not think through some of the impact of that. And this allows you to have a full playbook. I have all of my answers for the existing client and what their concerns are. Yes, I have all of the answers that the direct response marketer would need to know. And also the competing coach. This is the most interesting one to ask for, which is why I added this in this batch. They say, honestly, good. The $2,400 price point that you had was underpricing the market and dragging down what clients were expecting to pay for a serious one-on-one coach. At $3,500, she's now slightly above me, which means she'd have a better positioning, results, etc. If she's just fitness for women over 35 at $3,500, she's the most expensive generalist in the crowded category. But if she's a premenopause and busy mom specialist with a methodology, $3,500 is fair and probably low. Imagine if you were thinking through this price point decision and how looking at all of these perspectives, the things that these different people are considering will help reveal landmines, reveal opportunities, and overall prevent whatever decision that gets made from taking down the ship. And then Claude is going to tell you where they all agree, where they differ, and give you a synthesized recommendation on what it thinks. But let's move on to the last thing, because the last thing I want to show you is it isn't really a separate technique. It's the thing that makes every technique in this video work better. It's what's underlying. Think about what we actually did today. In the first section, I showed you two prompts. One asks for better ads. The other asks for better ads after running a 100 lead test. Same question, completely different output. The only thing that changed was how much information I gave it and how I framed the question. Then in the KPI section, I didn't change the simulation at all. I just told it what I was actually measuring. One input. The whole output shifted just off of that new input. That wasn't a coincidence. That's the pattern. The quality of what you get out of an LLM is almost entirely determined by the quality of what you put in. It's the context, not the words, the information, the context. The frame you give it for how to think about what you just told it is everything. And this goes way beyond ad copy and pricing decisions. If you're negotiating a deal and you don't tell it the history of the relationship, the leverage on both sides, and what a walkaway looks for you personally, it gives you a generic negotiation script. And that's fine if that's okay with you, but I think we want more accurate answers that should work in the real world, which is the purpose for all of this. So if you tell it all of that, it gives you a strategy built around your specific situation. Same thing if you're deciding whether to take outside funding, whether to go public with an opinion that could divide your audience, whether to bring on a partner and give up equity. These are all decisions where the nuances of your specific situation are everything. And the LLM can only work with what you give it. And honestly, this isn't even limited to business. If you're deciding whether to relocate your family or navigating a situation where the people closest to you are all pulling in different directions, the same principle applies. Give it the full picture, tell it what actually matters to you, and the output changes completely. Most people treat the LLMs like a search engine. Type a question, get an answer, move on. And then some go beyond that and treat it like a personal advisor. But if you don't understand how to frame the thinking, it's no more than a really smart friend than a true tool to extract the best answers. And that's what you're looking for. You're giving it your world, then telling it how to think about your world, and then letting it go to work. That's the difference between an answer and the right answer when there's real stakes to the decisions that you're making. Now, with that said, if you got value from this, subscribe. I put out videos like this every week, all of it coming from things that I'm actually using to build my next company to $50 to $100 million in annual recurring revenue. And if you want to go deeper on any of this, you can get access to the exact prompts I used in this video so you don't have to reverse engineer them yourself. And I can personally show you how to apply them to different situations, or specifically how to use these techniques inside your sales funnel from the moment someone sees your ad all the way to a closed deal. I run a completely free community called Revenue Lab. No paid tiers, nothing to buy, just founders and operators working through the same problems together. The link is in the description. Come on in and hit me up there if you want my thoughts on anything that you're working on. Introduce yourself, tell me you came from this video, and until then, see you next time.